post has like, I don't know, 30, 40. It's not like hundreds of thousands engagement. It's okay. It's much better than any post, any group, or any post that and on LinkedIn, that's for sure. It's better than LinkedIn for us. And I have like pretty big audience on LinkedIn, huh?
That is very interesting. Yeah, I mean, because we have a LinkedIn group. I mean, man, it's hard. It's like 600 people, and and you have to like, guys, come on, like,
Seriously, get an well, we're live, man. We're live, Sangram. We're live with Sangram Vajre. He's one of the writers he's been talking a lot about account-based marketing. He has just launched a few months ago, ABM is for B2B, which we're going to be talking. He also has an amazing podcast called The Flip My Funnel, and he's also he makes basically everyone who's in marketing and B2B together on the podcast. And he was working for Salesforce with the Pardot and a lot of things he's going to be talking. We just started and we were talking about Facebook groups and why he's not in Facebook, but thank you very much for being here, and let's have an amazing talk for everyone.
Dude, I'm stoked to be on. And as I said, this is my first Facebook, LinkedIn Live, or I've done LinkedIn Live, but not Facebook Live. So I'm excited to see how this goes.
It's going to be good, man. And one of the questions is, what is account-based? No, before we go there, tell me a little bit about yourself. Yeah, man, I was going deep on the, tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right. So, as you said, I'm Sangram here. I ran marketing at Pardot prior to this, and we went through the acquisition of ExactTarget and Salesforce. It was fantastic just going from a 100 people company to all of a sudden this gigantic, iconic brand Salesforce within 6 months. And it was a really rewarding experience for about 2 years. And then started Terminus about 5 years ago, almost to the T. And we were just started as 3 co-founders. Now we're about 200 people based here in Atlanta and San Francisco. As you said, have written 2 books. The very first book on account-based marketing in 2016. And in September, I launched the ABM is B2B book. So we'll get into that. But my passion and heart has really been around this problem that Forrester came out, I think around 2015. And they said, and this cemented everything why we started Terminus and why I'm so passionate about changing that direction, is because they came up with a stat that says less than 1% of the leads that B2B marketing and sales generate turn into revenue, turn into customers. So said another way, 95% of what marketing and sales are creating are not driving shit. So I wanted to there's got to be a better way to do it. And the reason has been clearly that we just get as many people at the top and then figure out if they're ready to buy, figure out if they have budget, figure out if this is the right time, figure out if our products fits their industry and stuff, and thereby it's less than 1%. So that's the Flip My Funnel is really a flipped version of that. And that really started the whole movement. And it's fantastic to be part of it.
I love, and it's funny because talking about Flip My Funnel podcast, and we were talking about an return on investment, and you said, no, Gerard, return on relationship.
Yes, it's not an ROI. It's an ROI.
And I think it's basically probably a good way to decrease or to increase the percentage on the ROI on the leads could be implementing higher relationship and probably prospection. And if you can tell us and you can walk through us a little bit on that, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll give you a great example. So one of our customers is Jillian Gartner, who is from Thomson Reuters. All right. Thomson Reuters is $1 billion company. People know, everybody knows about them. And she's one of our customers. So I'm like, hey, let's just hop on a podcast and talk about how you do account-based marketing. So first of all, that's like the best way to have a conversation with anybody, right? And they're like, yeah, sure. There's no legal involved. There is no press release involved. There is nothing. And on the podcast, she shared, you know what? Through using Terminus and through using account-based strategy, our win rate for my 250 accounts is, guess what? I'm like, what? 95%. I'm like, come on, say that again. She's like, yes, it's 95%. So think about that, right? So as soon as I heard that, I'm like, fantastic. I go to my customer success team. Did you know that, their success rate is 90%? They're like, we had no idea. Like, crazy. So let's bring her to the office. We had an all hands, had her do it in the company. We did a case study video with her. Then she's one of the stories that I wrote in the book and got the legal and everybody to approve it. And then she's now speaking with us at the conference. So if I look at the ROI of it, it's no point even talking about it. We cannot get anybody to tell anything good unless they're naturally speaking through it. But just through that 15-minute conversation has led to all these things. And I cannot even imagine how many people who are buying the book, let's say, or listening to that video or listen to that podcast. There are 100,000 subscribers, right? So there are people that are getting influenced by that. And to me, that is going to happen anyway. So if I keep figuring out ROI for everything, man, we would be sitting there all day and still lose the relationship.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. It's what one of the things I say is do things because you love it and forget about measure. Don't measure. And we have I think is paralysis by analysis nowadays. Yes. And yes, some minds are to measure because they're not creating, but some guys like you and I and many thousands we create stuff that others have to measure, okay?
Right.
And I think it's so important, and I love it. Thanks God we have people measuring as well, huh?
Yeah, I mean, so at some point, there has to be analytics that I know people are probably building platforms today who are trying to measure some of these things. But if you are any good marketer today, I think you and I know this, that the most amazing things that we do are unscalable and they are all about relevance.
And never has been done because you want to achieve something. It's because you want to give in a way.
Right. And as soon as it works, people will start copying it, and then you have to find the next awesome, better thing to do. So it's all of that. Like email was the same, marketing automation was the same, and now direct mail is back and people are sending direct mail that are awesome. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, everybody's sending direct mail, big deal. So you have to constantly find whatever takes heart and whatever takes effort. And I think doing a podcast, spending the time actually shows that you care, you're invested in that relationship, you're focused. So it has a lot more ROR, return on relationship, as opposed to ROI, which I think is a smaller way of looking at things.
I have one question because I like to talk a little bit about IBM is B2B and how the idea came from another book that you had about account-based marketing for dummies, and how that started, how it evolved, and not just on the content, but on the process, how difficult it was to make the first book, how easy it was to make the second, you wanted to kill yourself because you signed a contract. So a few things about the book itself and also about the content.
Absolutely, man. We can talk about content later on. The process, the first book was way harder than the second book, as it is with the first kid versus second kid.
That's right.
The first kid, we're wiping everything and making sure everything is clean. Second kid, he's like, is she okay? Yeah, seems like, oh, it's fallen down. It's been only 2 hours that, the food should be still good, right? So you just, you start focusing on what's really important and stop focusing on just peripheral things. So the first book, we wrote it because I wanted to help establish the category and thought leadership in the space, and nobody had ever written anything on this topic. And for us, based in Atlanta, first-time founders trying to build a category, I mean, it doesn't work. We had a recipe of disaster put in front of us. So by writing a book, by starting a podcast, by creating a conference, it really created more of a movement. And that allowed us to invite influencers. So every influencer I interviewed, I put their information in the book. Every person that spoke at the conference, I wrote transcripts from that in the book. So all these things, in somehow, some way, I just pulled them together into the first book. And at that time, my whole thesis and theory around it was, this is just a better mousetrap. This is a better way to acquire new customers. And what happened in the last 4 years since I wrote the first book, I've just seen with all these interviews and all these customers, oh my goodness, people are using account-based strategy to drive pipeline, which means that if you have a deal sitting in the, if you have a deal going on that a salesperson is focused on, marketing typically goes back. It's actually the time to give air cover to all those decision makers in that deal. So marketing actually needs to be way more involved than they need to, just a different way. expansion deals became a bigger deal, where if you have one customer, like one type of product, and if you have more products to upsell and cross sell, like Jillian did at Thomson Reuters, it made perfect sense. So more and more what I learned was this is just a better way to do marketing and sales if you're in B2B. And that's why I just wanted to be the first one to come out and say, hey, look, I wrote the first book on account-based marketing. Here's my second book that just says that this is a better go-to-market strategy. And candidly, the second book, the process was a lot more simpler, right? Because I understood what it takes. I hired an editor from day one for my second book. He and I wrote like together everything. Like we wrote literally the second book in 3.5 months, but it has information for the last 4 years that we aggregated from podcasts and blogs and stuff. So it was more of pulling things together as opposed to staring at a blank page and say, where do I start? So having that editor for the second book was game changer.
That's something. Has it been profitable?
I mean, so all profits are going to this charity we call Good Story.
But has it actually been? Did you lose money making it?
I mean, honestly, so I'll tell you, I'll literally give you the math there, right? So first of all, obviously our business wants, this is like a business card, right? Like we are giving it to every single customer.
Okay, everything is kind of supported by business.
Yeah, the business has fully supported it, fully funded it. So from that perspective, it's great. Second of all.
Good, I'm going to make a book, man. I like it. That's what I'm asking. I love it.
Dude, all the people you're interviewing, I mean, imagine pulling a book together of like what Tim Ferriss did with the book of the Tribe of the Titans, right? It's the same concept, but if you can paint a narrative around it, which is what I tried to do with the book that supported not just my view of the world, but also where our company is going, it just blended together really well. So the company funded it, supported it, pulled it together. I could hire the editor, the graphics, and it's not as expensive. I would say the whole book probably cost putting that together, maybe 10 grand or something. Okay. And then the rest is really the printing cost, which
you spend much more in a trade fair, in any shitty show that you go, any sponsoring that you do, it's a bit more, it's more expensive. And that's it.
Right. I mean, it's better than giving data sheets at a booth than to say, hey, here is a book we wrote. Here's a
Let me sign it for you, baby.
Right. It's a very different conversation to have. It's worth the money and the time it goes into it.
Okay, also you've been talking about the conference. Tell me more about the conference. When is it? When is the next one? And share with the love with everyone, man.
So Flip My Funnel. I'll tell you a quick story about Flip My Funnel.
I hope do you have Instagram? Just to let you know.
Nope.
Man, you don't have anything. Okay.
I don't have anything.
They're recording this outside. And Twitter?
Yeah. I have Twitter, yes.
Okay, good. Then put it on Twitter, okay?
Yeah, put it on Twitter. Yeah, he's like, man, dude, where are you from? Which planet you're from?
Yes. Instagram, man. Instagram, at least. You look like a millennial.
I know, and I'm like totally oddball, man. I post daily on LinkedIn. I like to engage, so I get distracted when I have like 5 things. So I'm like, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I'm literally having a conversation with everyone as they go. But as I started to look at like 5 channels, I'm like, there is no way. I just don't want to blast people. I want to engage. So I may have a smaller list as opposed to broader.
I am with you, although Grant Cardone, which we have next week, everyone listening, we have Grant Cardone in the show. He says, be omnipresent. And I am not on every social media, but I am. We have some different guys who's running. I don't have a big audience. Everyone can go to Upwork and get someone who runs Insta, Facebook, Twitter. And I try to make the content kind of different. And it costs me less than like $1,000 a month to run all this social media to bring leads. And it's not a lead building machine. It's just out of personal branding, out of love. And my recommendation is like be omnipresent in any way. Oh man, Facebook, you are a big guy, man. You need to be on Facebook. You sell more books. A Facebook group on ABM or account-based marketing, it's going to work on Facebook, huh?
All right, you know what? I'm literally making a note of this is to find out and look into creating a Facebook group or join your Facebook group.
Yeah, it's a few guys. Aaron Kroll is doing a very good ClickFunnels group. It's amazing.
I heard.
It's amazing. They have like 170,000 people, and they do You know, it's like
Russell Brunson, right? Russell Brunson.
Exactly. It's another guy running it, but you create the brand, you put the brand. Mine is kind of run by me, but anyway, we're talking about you. Tell me about the conference. I think it's when is the next conference and who is it for?
Right. So we have been doing the Flip My Funnel conference, and it is to quickly share the story. I actually wanted to run a Terminus conference when we started Terminus, but nobody would sponsor. And no, like, you know, it was like, hey, we don't even know you guys kind of thing. We're like, okay, well, what do we do? And I had this idea of Flip My Funnel. So I bought the domain Flip My Funnel for $8 and said, hey, what if we just call it Flip My Funnel? And everybody's like, yeah, we'll sponsor it, no problem. So the first 5 conferences we did, I didn't pay a dime. It was all sponsored by competitors, sponsored by like different media companies. So we didn't have to do anything. So it was fantastic. So since then, we just have been running the conference, and now we've outsourced the execution of the conference.
This sounds amazing, man.
Yeah, right. So it's been good. So it happens every year in August. So we just did our August conference in Boston. It's been a 4 year in a row that we have been doing this yearly conference. And I have a road show that's happening for 5-city road show called Flip My Funnel. We have been to Chicago and DC, and now we're going to next week Palo Alto. So if you're in California, you just go flipmyfunnel.com/events. You would see all the listing of location. We obviously will be in Atlanta, California, Seattle, and I forget one more place, Chicago, I think. We're going to go. Okay. 4 or 5 places we're going to go in the next 2 weeks.
And who is it for, the conference?
It's for B2B. If you're in B2B and if you're in marketing and sales, trying to figure out how to do better job of marketing and sales. And if account-based marketing is anywhere on your radar, this is it. It's a 3-hour workshop that we do. It's free to attend if you can to do it, but it's like limited to only 100 people because it's a very conversational. It's round tables. We have strategies, we have workbooks, we literally go through stuff and do things, and we speak and talk and have companies share their stories, but not in a presentation format. There's no decks. It's actually like you tell how you target better. How do you engage better? How do you activate your sales team better? How do you measure success? So we really focus on that team framework that we came up with.
And if you have like the perfect recipe for any company, and what I want to say is like, what will be the best secret you could share? Talking about from what you were learning with Flip My Funnel, what would be like, yeah, man, this is my favorite dish. What would be your favorite growth strategy that you could define in just 1 minute without? If we think the product is good, the UX is good. Yeah. Something like this. Let's imagine that someone has the perfect company with the funnel, but what would be that extra thing that you could say, do this, man, and it's going to fucking work?
I'll tell you, for every single conference, we invite our competitors to come and speak.
Good. That hurts, man. You need to have big balls to do that. You need to have
every single conference. I have had all of our competitors come and speak. And the reason is because, and it sounds counterintuitive at first, but if you really think about it, if you run a conference and yours becomes the industry conference, which means you get to set the narrative for the entire industry where they're going, and all of your competitors are sponsoring your conference that people can hear to see, you become the leader of the category immediately. So as opposed to competing, you just literally have like, hey, look, we would work hard. We would have our team run the conference. We'll set the agenda. We'll set the speakers. You got to just show up and do it. It sounds too easy and for the competitors. So they would do it. And when they do it and they get a stage, they feel like that's what they want. But in a hindsight, in a way, they're leaving money on the table because they're no longer setting the narrative. They're just like a booth at like any other stuff. So we had our competitors at all of our conferences, and we feel great about that.
And also the thing is that it's called Flip My Funnel. It's kind of like only people who knows you, it's run by you guys, but it's kind of the same on my group at the Growth Marketing and Abound group. It's some guys from Hunter, Warren or any other guys can promote themselves. And what I always say is my idea is to help 1 million people by 2020 is to find the emails the best future customer. That's my vision, man. If someone else has better data than me, go for it and use it. And I think this is super important. And it's such beautiful that it's creating so much value. And plus, you need to work harder because it's your competitor is there. It's like, yeah.
Right, we can't just show up and expect things to happen. Our sales team knows that, hey, look, look, the food is on the table and whoever is hungry is going to eat it, right? So you need to figure out how to hustle, how to work hard and all that stuff. But from leading a cat, because my goal is like long term, right? Not just that event. The goal, if your goal is to create something that people would say, you know what, that's the conference I want to go to next year after next, and I want to learn, and they are the experts in the field. If you want to be that, because that way you can charge premium for your products and services because they look at you as a leader in the category. I don't see a better way to do that than pulling an event together where your competitors are actually just a booth.
Wonderful. What about with the Flip My Funnel podcast? How regularly you do it? How do you bring the people? And
yeah, oh man, I love the podcast is fun. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I don't know how else I can do everything else, but it's a daily podcast. So it's every day. Tell me about it, right? It's a daily one. Daily, and it's 2018.
Oh, man, it's taking me hours and ages to prepare one of these. You know, it's just like daily. You wake up like at 4 o'clock.
So here's the thing, and I'll share it openly. I only record once or twice a week. That's all I'm doing. Yeah. But I've just one of the things I say on the podcast, if anybody listens, is this is my thesis for the last 5 years of what I've learned in one sentence, which is without a community, you're simply a commodity.
Yeah, man, I love it. And without a community,
you are simply a commodity, which means anybody can copy you, whatever you're doing. But if you have a community, then you can do whatever you need to do, grow, all that stuff, right? So that is my thesis on it. So part of that is every Tuesday, it's called the Takeover Tuesday. So somebody from our community, we have 10,000 people plus in our link, email and all that stuff on Flip My Funnel. They run the Tuesday podcast. So it's like, I don't even do it. They invite the people, they do the recording and all that stuff, and I have an agency who runs or do the editing, blogs and all that stuff. On Thursdays, because we have done like about 10 Flip My Funnel conferences and every single session is recorded, I literally replay the recording from one of the sessions on Thursday. It's great content, great quality, so people love that. Actually, it's one of the highest rated out of that series. So only on Mondays when I interview somebody, so I prep for it. And then I do LinkedIn Live, so that goes on Wednesday. And on Friday, I do like one big idea for 5 minutes, whatever is top of mind for me. So very simple. So I've just kind of skimmed it down to really doing it once a week and then the Friday, but the rest is already done.
Yeah, I love automation, and I think that everyone is people helping you, and what you said, just say without the community that you are a commodity, 100%. I mean, why Harley Davidson is such an amazing motorbike company. I hate the noise, man, but every fucking people tattoos that have fucking Harley Davidson tattoo,
I mean, you think about companies like, HubSpot, who's an investor in Terminus. They created Inbound. And I had Brian on the podcast, who's the CEO of HubSpot. And he said, I asked, like, why do you keep Inbound separate than HubSpot? Like, you have 20,000 people coming in. They're like, look, that is our moat. That is like the biggest wall we can build, because any competitor who wants to come into our space, they will have to build a community of that size, that is that engaged, before they even come close to our product. Product can be copied, but they can't build that. So I'm like, wait a minute. So all category leaders, you think about Salesforce created Dreamforce, Gainsight created Pulse, Drift created Hypergrowth, HubSpot created Inbound, Terminus created I mean, we think about all the category leaders. There's a reason community is a big part of their playbook. So it just dawned on me literally like 8 months ago when an investor asked me to come speak. They said, don't talk about ABM, talk about how you build a very, very flowing community. And I don't have community like what you're doing and others. So it's kind of like, man, if I start spending more time, maybe I can. But it's a very tight-knit community who just go and be at every event and write about it and do all kinds of stuff.
And also it's the consistency, man. It's like, and also it's kind of like it's a new baby. It's a new spin. I would say it's a spin-off from FindThatLead, growing. I don't do it for the sale. It's just doing for giving the value, and it happens. If it has to happen, it just happens. And events, we've been doing some events. We did some rooftop parties here in Barcelona. Like, it's like we have meetups, but it is difficult to nail a good conference and to keep, because it's a lot of energy, man. It's kind of energy is one of those big factors. Okay, anyone interested on account-based marketing, how they contact you, where they can buy the book from?
Well, so you can buy it from Amazon or any place, books are sold. So it's just launched like September 1st. We have over 60 reviews on the book already. So I feel really good and proud of the quality of the book. I write daily on LinkedIn. That's where my jam is. That's where I kind of spend more time. So connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm going to try to connect back on Facebook, because this is like the 5th conversation last 2 weeks. I'm like, what happened? Did Facebook come from the dead? Because all of a sudden people are like on Facebook.
You know what? It's like direct mail, man. I never left Facebook, Facebook groups, I don't think they're growing. I think they're just there. And it's a lot of like, for me, my point of view is LinkedIn guys like our age are there. They are also in Facebook.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's like the
social LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's a social LinkedIn type of thing. And people want to be
kind of don't work as well, so it's interesting.
No, LinkedIn looks to me has some work, and LinkedIn, it's very funny because we have a few posts like how they call it? Yeah, we had one funny post reaching over 100,000 views. The rest, 5, 10. You are, but it's difficult sometimes to reach such a broad audience. With Facebook, we're lucky with the group, and
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. Congratulations. I mean, you're putting your heart and soul into it. It shows, and that's
we're lucky. Seriously, sometimes we just luck. It's based on luck. I don't know, because I don't follow any algorithm or anything.
You follow your heart. That's what matters.
It's a good stuff. We try to get better. Anyway, Sangram, it's been a pleasure to have you. I think I keep the sentences: without a community, you're just a commodity. And it's been a pleasure to have you in the group. And hopefully in the next few weeks, we can have you again. And if we see you in a conference, it will be amazing.
Love to, man. Well, good luck with everything you're doing. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you later. See you soon.